speak through Fox News and let the independents who are tuning into you, let them know what it is that she stands for, the principles behind her positions.
It used to be that new candidates were advised to brush up on the issues so they could handle questions from anyone, even tough questions. The idea behind that was that it prepared you also for actually governing. But now the advice to candidates is only to talk to sympathetic reporters.
We need to start now by electing strong leaders who aren't afraid to shake it up. We need strong, principled leaders, public servants who respect our Constitution.
We need clarity. We deserve answers, so we don't ask the same questions tomorrow.
Good night, Lon.
Thanks to all of you for watching. Tonight, politicians who say they're against big government spending, who say big government spending doesn't create jobs, that is, until they ask for some of that big government spending to create jobs. We're keeping them honest tonight. We begin, though, as we always do, keeping them honest. Tonight, it's hypocrisy, plain and simple. Politicians who rail against government spending and are campaigning against it right now, then turn around and say, show me the money. What they're railing against and mooching from, as you'll see, is the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. It's better known as the stimulus. You've probably seen the road signs, $814 billion, a lot of money, no doubt. About a third for tax cuts, a third for aid to states, and a third for spending projects like highways and bridges and other stuff. Now, we've already documented some of the waste and some of the silly projects paid for by the act. Still, the bottom line, when the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office looked at it last year, they estimated that as many as 1.6 million people are working, thanks to the Recovery Act. But an awful lot of lawmakers, mainly Republicans, disagreed from the get-go. Take a look.
It does not create jobs. The stimulus package was supposed to create jobs.
The last stimulus bill didn't create one new job.
This plan is a disaster, and it's not fair to the American people.
Government spending doesn't create good jobs. That's why I fought and voted against the Bush Wall Street bailout, the failed Pelosi $1 trillion stimulus.
I think the stimulus was a big mistake. I think we can, fairly safely declare it now a failure.
The stimulus was excessive spending that did not meet the intended targets.
The first stimulus bill didn't work.
Unfortunately, the current stimulus bill, I believe, does little, if anything, to actually stimulate the economy.
This bill, as it's presently headed toward passage, is a colossal mistake.
It does not create jobs.
It didn't create one new job? That's correct.
A failure, a big mistake, didn't create one new job. Lawmakers who oppose the Recovery Act, and many are campaigning right now on their opposition to it, which is absolutely, perfectly, totally legitimate. That's called democracy. But there is another word for what I'm about to show you, and that's called hypocrisy. Got a stack of papers right here. The Nonpartisan Center for Public Integrity dug up these letters from these very same lawmakers who hate the stimulus, who are also pleading for a piece of it. For example, here's Minnesota Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann's letter to Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood asking for stimulus money to rebuild I-94. Quote, this project will promote economic prosperity while alleviating safety concerns along Interstate 94. MNDOT, she writes, that's the Minnesota Departmental Transportation, estimates that the project would directly produce 1,407 new jobs per year, while indirectly producing 1,563 a year. That's her own words. But wait a minute, didn't she just bitterly oppose the Recovery Act?
Government spending doesn't create good jobs. That's why I fought and voted against the Bush Wall Street bailout, the failed Pelosi $1 trillion stimulus.
And you know what? She's not alone as well. Here's another one from Tennessee Senator Lamar Alexander, also to Secretary LaHood, also for highway spending, saying, quote, this transportation project would provide both short-term and long-term benefits to this economically disadvantaged and distressed section of rural Tennessee. So Senator, I mean, which is it? Both short and long-term benefits, or?
This bill, as it's presently headed toward passage, is a colossal mistake for our country.
And there's Congressman Louis Gohmert of Texas, who you heard calling the Recovery Act a disaster a short time ago. Now listen to him say, gimme, gimme. I mean, he's applying for a Recovery Act broadband grant, saying, quote, it is my understanding that the East Texas area would benefit greatly from a more broadband infrastructure funded in part by this grant. Big government? Bad. Money from big government? Yes, please. And it's big names as well. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, who says the stimulus was a big mistake, Well, here's what he wrote as well. In short, supporting Appalachian railroads has the potential to attract industry, create jobs, and move through areas underserved by national highways. Several Democrats who voted against the Recovery Act also are seeking money from it, but the vast majority are Republicans. And again, the issue is not denouncing a government program. It's denouncing it out of one side of your mouth while pleading for a piece of the action out of the other. A lot to talk about tonight, something that affects all of us. So with us, Ari Melber of Politico and The Nation magazine, also Will Kane of The National Review. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Ari, I mean, let me get right to it. People hear this sort of thing and they sort of dipping into conversations like this. Is this just another example of the kind of double talk, I guess, from politicians that voters are sick and tired of?
It is, and I think that's one part of the problem. Of course, there's a little bit of a reversal here. Usually we talk about people not practicing what they preach. Here, the problem really is that a lot of Republicans are not preaching what they practice. They have every right to go in and try to get this money for their districts. You had Senator McConnell up on the screen earlier. He asked for $20 million to get a bridge built near Madison coming out of his state. That makes sense. But what he shouldn't do is then go along and pretend that it doesn't create jobs. Obviously, if you spend $20 million building a bridge, you're going to have to hire people to do it, and that does create jobs. In the case of infrastructure, it also solves some problems that we've seen leading up even before the recession.
And that sort of gets to the point. I mean, Will, how can Republicans justify voting against the stimulus and then going out to try and get stimulus money for their districts? What message is that sending?
Yeah, you guys have got me here in an unenviable position. Look.
The Tea Party American movement is going to grow. On November 3rd, November 2nd isn't the end of this. It's the beginning of this, the reawakening of America and understanding what our foundation is and how America was built and how it became prosperous and generous and safe. And now we need to build upon that.
Suppose Senator John Doe puts forth a constitutional amendment that would outlaw abortion, even in cases of rape or incest, and he asked you to attend the announcement and support him in that. Would you do it?
I would. Yes, a proposal like that, I would stand by it. Let's be completely clear about the facts here. There is no place in the world and no time in history where restricting women's reproductive rights makes a people or a nation more free or more equal. These extreme positions on abortion are, without any question, a war on American girls and women, and the fact that there are women who are both complicit and participatory in it is really neither surprising nor unprecedented. It has always been true, and it is incredibly important that we recognize that despite the fact that we can be very proud of these women and as politicians, that the question is, how do women as citizens fare on the other side of them either being elected or not elected?